Deadpool and Wolverine. It's the highest grossing R-rated film in history.
Woo!
With $1.086 billion in the box offices globally, defeating 2019's Joker, which reached, do you know? $1.078 billion at the time, so just a measly $80 million in it.
Shit.
It's the first crossover movie since the Fox-Disney merger, where Disney purchased Fox's assets in 2019 for a whopping $71.9 billion.
I saw that, by the way. That is... I won't go F-bomb this early, but that is mad.
That is the most
so
insane amount. Oh my God. Well, anyway... Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Mate Night Podcast, where we are ranking every film ever made.
Hello, Dave.
Today, we are diving into the latest box office titan, giving you a non-spoiler review for the first 15 minutes. Then we'll delve into spoilers with a thorough plot analysis. We'll also rate the film across 7 different categories and wrap things up with a Fredzilla special segment. We've got a jam-packed episode today, so strap in, strap on, and let's kick things off with our initial reactions.
There be strapping on. You can strap on for this one. That is very relevant.
It's
based on the content
relevant.
of the film.
That is. This score that we're about to give is the most subjective score possible. We are simply trying to bottle how much we enjoyed this movie. On the count of 3, who went first last time? I think it was me, right?
It was.
Because you counted me in.
Yes.
Okay, Fred, your opinion out of 10 to 1 decimal place on Deadpool and Wolverine. 3, 2, 1, go.
6.4.
6.6. Ooh. Just either side of the 6.5 mark of absolute neutrality.
I have 6.8 written down right here, and I was like...
I had 6.8 written down, and then I was like, you know what?
And I wrote everything I thought about it and thought, I can't have it as a... but for anyone who cares, my differentiator between net good and net bad, 6.5.
Which I've now adopted, I think.
I like it, 6.5. 7's maybe a bit too... that's quite good.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So, look, this was a difficult one to work out, whether it was good or bad. But I just felt there were so many parts of it which... I hate pandering.
Yes.
And they get around it effectively, on the most part, because...
They acknowledge it?
Deadpool, and they acknowledge it so much.
Yeah.
But still, that feels like a cheap out. So I just couldn't. This is the conversation I was having in my head just as you were going 3, 2, 1. Yeah. And you know what blurted out with me? 6.4, not 6.8.
Yeah.
I mean, 0.4 is quite a big disparity, but I've really been knocking it down in my head the last 5 minutes. What about you? Talk to me.
6.6.
Yep.
Deadpool and Wolverine. So it's been purchased by Disney.
Yep.
First crossover. Deadpool effectively is entering the Marvel Universe. It's one of those rare R-rated superhero movies. We don't get many of those. It has performed ridiculously well at the box office, breaking $1 billion.
Yeah.
One of only 55 movies to ever break a bill. Obviously, starring Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman, who, by the way, looked unbelievable.
Jesus, he is
like
shredded.
Oh my God. Anyway, let's not linger on that.
Huge jacked man.
Yeah, I like keeping that.
Have you not heard that before?
No, that's so
I
good.
can tell by your reaction.
That's so good. Okay, so I'm going to start with the good things, okay? It hits its target with absolute precision. So if you like Deadpool and you like Marvel, you're going to absolutely love this movie. It really is just fan service galore. There's cameos every 30 seconds. There's references to the Avengers every 35 seconds. It's nostalgia paradise. The plot itself was basically just a meta commentary on the whole merger and how things are going wrong. Ryan Reynolds is doing exactly what he does as Deadpool. So if you like that, he's still doing it. He's breaking the fourth wall, meta joke making. Every single word that comes out of his mouth is some sort of attempt at a joke, and he does have the ability to be funny at times. And so they've absolutely, if you are aiming for a specific target, they have nailed it. It's perfect. They've done exactly what Deadpool and Marvel fans will want, and I understand that. The action and the visuals, way better than some of the recent Marvel stuff. I haven't watched a hell of a lot of the Marvel stuff. I'll get onto that in a minute. I thought the score was quite good. And there were a couple of licensed songs which I also quite enjoyed. I mean, Green Day coming out of nowhere was just like, I love that. So,
did you feel it was a bit like, again, like, here we go, they'll like this?
Oh, mate, I get into
every
it.
turn.
I get into it. Okay, so let me make this clear. 6.6. I didn't really like this movie very much. I don't care about Marvel anymore. I just don't give a shit. Okay, you've lost me. You've done way too much.
Yeah.
Your whole cinematic thing is just you've gone completely overboard on quantity and just all but forgotten about quality.
Yeah,
I don't care about Marvel anymore. And this whole film is basically just, this is about Marvel. It's about Marvel, the whole thing. And for me, Deadpool is tiring. He is relentless with his jokes. It is, so those aren't, I don't like those two things, and those are the two things it's got going for it. If you can't appreciate all the Marvel nostalgia and the meta humor, then what you've got left is some decent fight sequences, another film wheeling out an 80s song to try and get it trending online. Everybody's done it since bloody Stranger Things, and I feel like it's insanely derivative, and I'm just, is anyone else going to do this, or are we going to say that enough's enough? Creativity, please. And then the laziest, most confused, time-wasting, basic bullshit plot I've watched in a long time.
Yeah.
I hated it. The problems that they have to overcome are introduced seconds before they have to overcome it. We are just told they're insurmountable, and then they just kind of get around it, and it's fine. There are whole 20-minute segments that just don't need to be there. The villains don't know what they're doing or why they're doing it. They're not even remotely intimidating. They're just irritating. And although it's an R-rated movie, a lot of the jokes that the villains were making, a lot of the dialogue around the villains, felt like it was aimed at children. Like it was just not funny, like at all. At least Deadpool is funny, like it's adult funny.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say his name just in case it's a spoiler, but the villains were atrocious. Really, it just comes down to that. That's my full review. Is just, it's got two things going for it which don't work for me. And so what's left is just utter bullshit. And that is why I don't like this movie.
Yeah, the more I think about it, the more I am angry at the film as a concept, because it's such a punch in the face to the audience, but it's done under the guise of, we need to really stop doing this. Like, there are specific points where it, like, this isn't a major spoiler because you can expect it, but maybe minor here. Like, they will specifically reference, like, we need to stop doing this, guys. We need to stop doing the multiverse thing. And it's like, just because you say that doesn't mean... It's like you know when someone has a really, really shitty personality trait, but they sometimes acknowledge it. And you're like, everyone's like, yeah, to be fair.
Stop doing that, please.
They do like kids. Sorry, too far. But, you know, like... Yeah, you just because you acknowledge it, you know, I initially you're like, yeah, well, fair enough, actually, and then you're like, no, you can't be like that just because you acknowledge it. And this happens on a routine basis. There's one specific moment where you mentioned the fight sequence. I didn't really. No, it's not that I didn't like the fight sequence. I did generally like the fight sequences, but like the first major one, or not the. Midway through, right, there's a big one, and he specifically says in it, you guys get a load of this, nerds.
Yeah,
like he goes,
nerds get your shock out or something like that.
Yeah,
special
and
shock
you're
out,
like, I was like, I'm not going to enjoy this at all after you say that. Like, and it's not only that, the way the fights happen, this isn't major spoilers. You mentioned the 80s soundtrack. Every single one they did, they had this gimmick where they do 80s soundtrack and then stop it for a bit of bash, 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 bosh. Yeah. And then like edit in, okay, the next hit, back into the song. Mm-hmm. And they did it throughout each fight. It would happen 2 or 3 times. And they did it in every fight with different songs. Yeah. And I didn't like it the first time. I hated the way that was edited to specifically make it seem more impactful. It felt so inauthentic and inorganic, the way that they were trying to drive an audience reaction. and then they just hit you over the head with, well, actually, we know what you guys want, and we're going to get away with it because we say, you know, we're going to tell you the trick, and then we're still going to trick you anyway. No, you're not going to trick us anyway, because we've seen this 3 times. It's the 3rd Deadpool. Maybe if this was the first. Like, part of my real issue with it is Deadpool as a character, and Ryan Reynolds performing Deadpool is perfect. Like, he's perfect for the role. He's perfectly cast.
Agreed.
But he's not a character that I could ever invest in for more than one film.
Yeah.
Like,
for sure.
It gets so tiring.
He's relentless. He's tiring.
Yeah.
It's almost one trick pony for 3 2.5 hour films. 3 2-hour films. It's like.
And I watched a video on someone talking about how desperate this was as a move for Marvel, based on how badly they're doing, some of the moves that they're now making. And I wasn't like, I watched the video and thought, look, yeah, maybe you're overthinking it, mate. Like, come on, it's a bit of fun. But the more I do think about it, the more I am like, he describes himself as Marvel Jesus because of the allegory that Jamie mentions about how they are effective. The whole film is effectively a metaphor for the 21st Century Fox, the Marvel or Disney acquisition of 21st Century Fox and the subsuming of 21st Century Fox into the Marvel franchise. And it is like, right, so you are going to just... It's like someone said, we're really struggling here. Why don't we throw Deadpool at it?
Yeah.
And then they just said, yeah, let's do it. And then they did the most tired... like with so little thought into the plot, into the story, but will at least throw loads of references, loads of cameos. Some of them will land. Yes, the jokes land. Yes, the fight scenes, some of them are good. But like, just as an idea, I am so morally against this that 6 point. I'm glad I erred on the side of it not being good.
Yeah, I mean, it is pandering. It is the archetype of pandering. It's pandemonium. It's just ridiculous. It's like that's all they've got. They've just gone, we know what people want. They want cameos. They want meta jokes. They want Deadpool. They want us to take the piss out of ourselves. Okay, cool. Do we need to worry about plot? Nah. Do we need to worry about villains and characters? Nah. Do we need to get anybody above like a sort of first year editing student who just fucking put something together? Nah, don't worry about it. Like, it felt like what they did was they said that all we need to do is this, and we've got a movie and that's going to be successful. And the worst thing is they were right. It's made them $1 billion. So they're just going to keep fucking doing it.
The thing I hate most about this is it was so successful.
Made so much money.
I went
and
to
it's
the
such
cinema.
A pile of shit.
3 weeks after this came out, we went to the cinema. It was packed. It was packed. Someone was sat in my seat and I had to move them.
Look, after all that ranting, I want to make some points to explain why it's not lower. I think that I fucking hate Ryan Reynolds sometimes, but Hugh Jackman, on the other hand, what a hunk.
He's great. He is great.
He's great.
He's phenomenal.
He's basically carried this. No, he was cool. I mentioned the fight sequences. Yeah, I actually agree with you on the editing, but the choreography was quite good.
I agree. Yeah, I like the choreography.
A lot of the visuals, if we put that under visuals with the broad CGI, I like the way Deadpool looked. Okay, because I think he's fully CG or something, right? Is
that right?
Okay, sorry for anyone listening. Fact check that. But whatever the case, he looks great. He looks great. Everyone looks really good in it, and the action was really good in it. And I think that from what I have seen of Marvel recently, it is not good. Like, it doesn't look good. The fighting is rubbish. The CGI is rubbish. Everything visually is atrocious. And this was very beautiful. Like, okay, no, let's not get carried away. Sorry. Apologies, everybody. I don't mean that. It wasn't. It had good fights, and it looked, the CG was good.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna piggyback on your response and say why I haven't given it lower, even though, you know, we spoke about what would be a really, really low score. What does that mean? And it has to be something that maybe you actively are ethically against. And this falls into that category. But part of the reason why I have not given it a lower score is for, well, a few reasons. So again, like you, I haven't kept up with the Marvel Cinematic Universe beyond Endgame. Like, that felt like a very fitting conclusion, and I had no interest whatsoever in following up with any of them outside of what, maybe hearing about films coming out. I'm not sure which ones I've even followed. I'd have to recheck, but I don't even know which ones I've seen.
This is the whole point in the movie.
Yeah.
This is the whole point in the plot.
And so they don't really, other than saying effectively these films have been shit, they don't have any specific references. Like, you can miss all of those. Yeah. It doesn't matter. Like, it didn't matter for me. But what it does do is give a love letter somewhat to the 21st century Marvel properties, 21st century Fox Marvel properties, I think all of which I'd watched and enjoyed and have been a part of my childhood and life. And so the references and the jokes generally did land. So I enjoyed that as an idea. And I quite liked that they gave send-off to certain characters. I liked mostly all of the cameos. And I did have fun with the film, but still think that it's like, I hate the film in the same way that, you hate yourself sometimes. Where you're like, I wish I could make more of a stance against this thing that I don't.
No, I get what you're saying.
I wish I didn't eat meat, but it's so tasty. That sort of thing.
Yeah.
Where, look, I can't.
It kind of works, but I hate it anyway.
Actively, this disgusts me.
I feel disgusted by it.
I feel disgusted. I need another shower.
Explain to me the Fox Disney stuff that goes on in Deadpool. What is that all about?
Okay, so Marvel, obviously, a long-standing comic book, and all of these characters stem from the comics that have been going on since, like the 20s, the 30s.
Right.
Quite old. So Stan Lee is one of the progenitors of it, and like Spider-Man, that sort of stuff will have come out. Maybe the 40s, that sort of era. So Marvel itself have been going on a bit longer. I think Action Comics is where DC came from, and that's so Superman would have been a slightly older. But I don't think that... I'm not sure if Action Comics was older than Marvel as an institution, but most of the famous characters came around Stan Lee's time. So you've got these characters. Marvel has an apex in terms of popularity through comics in probably from the 40s to the 60s. And then following that is the first wave of like superhero films. DC really set the tone with this, because some of the biggest films within the first wave of comic book films were like your Supermans and your Batmans in the 70s and 80s. Right. Marvel kicks on a bit in like the 80s and 90s, but it's really kind of TV movie versions of things like the Fantastic Four and the Spider-Mans. Mm-hmm. And kind of systematically they lose the rights. Marvel starts to lose a lot of money, making poor business decisions, and sells off their most famous characters one by one. Right. Until you get to the point where you're in the start or the middle of the 2000s, and Marvel's kind of on its last legs in terms of the amount of characters it actually owns, right? So its most popular characters, Spider-Man, X-Men, Fantastic Four, they're owned by other properties. Now, Spider-Man owned by Sony, and still actually owned by Sony. Fox owns a lot of the other ones. So we won't go into detail. I want to be careful of spoilers here, because I know there'll be some cameo references here.
It's more just cursory.
So I'll just give you, I won't go into detail about people that you might see, but some of the big hitters, and let's say X-Men as an example, that's one of Marvel's flagship properties, and Fox owns it back in the early part of the 2000s. And Fox really drives some very successful films during that time. So you got your X-Men's, really they kind of do a lot to drive the 21st century comic book movie boom, which Marvel capitalizes on in 2008 when it releases Iron Man. So really the first driver of that is Fox, and it's got your X-Men, it's got the Fantastic Fours that come out. These all do very well. And then in 2008, Marvel relies on one of the last big characters that it has, Iron Man, and really pumps in a massive effort into that.
So did they do anything? Was it Marvel itself that made Iron Man? It wasn't with Disney or with Fox or with anyone.
So Marvel made Iron Man in 2008. as its first MCU film.
Right.
Disney purchased Marvel in 2009.
Right.
I don't know how long before Disney really, became the driver of the movies as they were released or not, how much it was kind of the Marvel team first. But the MCU obviously became the dominant force in film for the 21st century at that point. And Iron Man was really like a gamble that spectacularly succeeded.
Oh my God. And you know what? It deserved it. I love that film.
Yeah, and then what you see now is kind of the rise and falls of an empire, effectively, because 21st Century Fox at the start of the 2000s riding very high on the X-Men series. By the point that Marvel is at its apex, which is the 2010s, all the way up to the end of the Infinity Saga, you really see the downturn of not only Fox, but some of the other expanded universe properties that are outside of Marvel. So, for instance, your DC has very, very checkerboard hit or miss in terms of the amount of high quality movies it released, and some real whiffs. You also have things like the horror universe, which I can't remember exactly what it's called, but had things like The Mummy and Dracula Untold and The Invisible Man. Like, at this point, I mean, Harry Potter starts to really expand its universe as well. Marvel drives this whole, let's just pump out as many films as possible and we'll all be on our own island of different, I don't even know what you call them, these universe islands that we seem to have in the 2010s. And basically what Disney has started to do is round them off and one by one has basically acquired it until Disney's, the big owns, we own everyone. So there was a downturn in the 2010s. I mean, one of the first to work closely with them was Sony, who give the rights to Spider-Man in some sense while still retaining them. But obviously Fox had miss after miss after miss. Like the X-Men, the Fantastic Four that came out in the mid-2010s were panned. The X-Men started to really kind of downturn, and they reference it in this, but there is, one film in particular that stands out and does very well. And it's seen kind of as almost an end of an era for Fox. Deadpool is probably the only other shining light in that time, which was a massive sleeper out of nowhere. How did that happen hit? And so then we get to this point where Disney buys 21st Century Fox, and now we're in a position where Deadpool is kind of the crossover to explain it, and they literally explain what is happening through the film. Like the film is
for sure, yeah. There's tons of references. I mean, that's why I've been interested to kind of get that, because there's I don't want to spoil anything, so if you've not watched it and you want to, then stop here. But there's a scene where it actually feels kind of respectful a little bit at times in a Deadpool kind of way, where they'll see the Fox. What would you even call it? It's like the logo, but the big physical 3D one in the void, in the dust, and they're kind of quite polite about it or whatever. And, as somebody who's never followed any of this drama, none of that made sense to me, really.
Yeah, right. Okay.
It kept referencing it, and I was like, okay, I can kind of tell what's going on a bit here, but
if you had a bit of an understanding for that, it was actually those were part of the highest points of the film for me, like referencing that, and it is a bit of a love letter to Fox, and those are films which are very cherished. That's certainly the good ones, and even some of the bad ones, like they give them their due as well.
We're going to move on to our plot review section. If you've made it this far, don't forget to like and subscribe.
Thank you for listening to that. We're going to absolutely head-on charge into some spoilers now, and there's a bloody lot of them. So you have been warned.
Basically, it's a plot review here for everybody. We're going to go through the 3 acts and see what happens. It's going to be a plot explained. I imagine we're not going to be particularly nice about it.
We're going to comment on this, so you know.
It's going to be a bit of a review and a bit of an explain. So Disney bought Fox's stuff in 2019 for $71.9 billion. Included in that acquisition was the rights to make a Deadpool movie. Deadpool and Wolverine is the very first crossover that Disney have made following this. I don't follow these films closely, okay? There was a lot that didn't make sense to me. So here is a layman's review of this is what's happened in Deadpool and Wolverine, and a review.
I can see if I can input at any point.
That would be brilliant. So just to get a little context set up, Deadpool and Wolverine's plot takes place in the absurdly complicated cinematic universe situation. They are crossing over ownership, timelines, universes, etc. And the truth is, it seems like the 6 writers of this movie also didn't give a shit about canonical integrity, which is fine. But like them, instead of trying to navigate our way through this 4-dimensional clusterfuck of a storm that led up to this film, here are just the facts that you need to know for this movie to make sense. Disney purchased Fox's digital assets, which basically means they're allowed to use their characters in the Disney's Marvel universe. You can forget all about the Avengers stuff. It really doesn't matter. That's already happened prior to the events of this movie. If you've not watched the first 2, Deadpool is an anti-hero with regeneration. A lot of the stories around him will often kind of play with where that limit is, but for all intents and purposes, the guy can be basically blown to pieces and will just always come back.
Yeah, he's going to be all right.
And then also within the Marvel world, even if you did kill him, you just pop to another timeline, but whatever. Wolverine also has regeneration. Again, I'm confident that they have done content on a regeneration off, although I don't know who comes off better. They both are just very regeneratable. He also has claws, and his skeleton and claws are made of an unbreakable metal called adamantium. Is there anything that you think they might need to know in addition to that very quickly?
So I believe just little, not gripes, but in case anyone is interested, if you do chop off Deadpool's head, I think he's done.
Really?
Yes.
I am interested. Right, I didn't know that.
Whereas, you can't do that with Logan. Adamantium skeleton makes it very difficult.
This is kind of the problem with the film, right? Because when he digs up his body, he just kind of... I'll get to it, but it doesn't make adamantium look very strong. Anyway, sorry to interrupt. Was there anything else at all?
No, go on. Carry on.
Okay, cool. So we start the film. We start a little way into the story for our hook, so it's not at the very, very beginning. Deadpool is hoping to find Wolverine alive in a grave because he is convinced that Wolverine is going to save his universe somehow, and obviously Wolverine can't die. Prior to this, here's some information that maybe I should have included a minute ago. Wolverine has died, okay? I know I just told you he has this infinite regeneration. There's a film called Logan. A lot of people really, really like it. He died at the end. So Wolverine is dead. Deadpool's trying to find him alive in his grave. That's the beginning of the film. A lot of the questions are, why is he doing this? Now, we go back to the actual start of the story. Deadpool is living as a civilian, his civilian self. He's selling secondhand cars. He's got a ridiculous toupee, a terrible outfit. He doesn't fit in. He feels shame. And for some reason, not clear to us just yet, he's given up on his superhero life. This means that the love of his life is not interested in him, giving him some character drive. During his birthday party, he is captured by the Time Variance Authority. These are basically exactly what they say on the tin. They are just an authority on messing around with time. Now, in Deadpool 2, he messed around with a bit of time, so these guys have arrested him. The TVA go through some exposition. They explain that there is this anchor being situation where basically a universe has a single being that if they die, then the universe slowly disintegrates. And Wolverine was that anchor being. The TVA then also tell him that your universe is splintering and dying. I'm going to speed this up. I'm going to speed this process up. I'm going to use this universe-destroying machine because I'm ambitious. Join us on this sacred timeline that they've introduced so that you can be safe. Deadpool says, fuck that, I'm going to go save my universe. And we find ourselves back at the Hook digging up Wolverine. He wants to find him alive, I guess, in the hope that he never died. I don't really understand, but that's kind of that's how we find ourselves back at the Hook.
Yeah, and I do have a bit to add here, actually, because it reminds me of what you said at the start. So, yeah, timelines do not make sense. Like, in reality, the Logan, the film where Wolverine dies, is set in a bit of a distant future.
2029.
Yeah, so in Deadpool's world, he wouldn't be dead at this point anyway. So the thing is, though, no one cares because the X-Men timeline has been so fucked for so long. They made so many mistakes with X-Men that everyone's just like, whatever. Like, how could you possibly keep up? Because they just change they just move the goalposts every time. So that's just one thing that I think everyone just kind of accepts that the timelines are all over the place, and then they say, well, it's all right because we jump back and forth in time all the time. But yeah, I just wanted to just say, in case you're confused, so are we, but I think you just got to accept it.
Don't worry about the timeline.
The writers don't.
The writers certainly don't. Deadpool then, he's digging up Wolverine. The TVA turn up and he brutally murders 50 people to a credit sequence, which is okay. Adamantium is supposed to be unbreakable, and he just smashes it to smithereens and uses it as weapons, like, with zero effort. I guess they might have come up with an explanation.
You mentioned 6 writers as well. I think that this was written in the writers' strike. So okay. maybe we can just give them the benefit of the doubt as some. Maybe Ryan Reynolds.
I mean, no one wrote this film. I mean, ChatGPT could have done a better job. So he kills a bunch of TVA people because he's found out that Wolverine is dead. He hops multiverses and finds different options of Wolverines because he's going to bring them back and reintroduce him to his universe so that he now has an anchor being and his universe is saved. He eventually lands after cameos and what actually was quite a funny little reference about comic book accurate Wolverine. Although maybe just funny because it's one of the only things that I understood. He then hops multiverses and he finds this Wolverine eventually who visually represents our Wolverine, but he is very beaten up in this universe because as a result of his action/inaction, a load of people died and he's very sad about it and he drinks alcohol. Deadpool brings this Wolverine back. He goes, look, I've got a Wolverine, don't worry about it. And the TVA, he really upsets them, and the TVA send them into the void. Okay, so this is a world which the TVA can send people into. Time doesn't really matter. It's a kind of a desolate, timeless landscape. For me, that's kind of where I think I would draw the end of the first act. That's kind of setting up the problem. We're kind of setting up the status quo in the universe and kind of getting us going. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd say so. That's a pretty good marker. A couple of points then on some of the stuff that we've gone through. The comic book accurate section. So we get all the cameos of different Wolverines, which is quite fun. Classic bloody multiverse of, madness. Let's chuck loads of stuff in there. You're going to have an all right time. If you're interested in the comics, which I'm not going to pretend I am, but I have looked at the references. They're all comic book accurate, so they're all from different variations of Wolverine through the years. And then the one that they specifically reference, say, comic book accurate Short King Wolverine, where he's 5'3", is obviously kind of funny to watch as well.
Because Wolverine is supposed to be not huge, jacked man, but actually very, very short, and that's kind of quite an important part of his character.
That's why he's called Wolverine, because Wolverines themselves are obviously short and scrappy.
Yes.
Part of the big issue when Hugh Jackman was originally cast was that, hey, this guy's 6'2". Like, Wolverine is, like, one of his defining characteristics is he's short.
Yes.
And they're like, everyone who's just grown up with this has forgotten it, but at the time people are like, what? Why have we cast this massive man?
And I think they made the right choice.
Yeah, he's unbelievable.
Okay, so now we move on to the second act. Oh, God, the second act.
Here we go, baby.
We meet in the void Cassandra Nova. So this is Charles Xavier's sister. She is this ultra-powerful matriarch of the void. She explains that she knows how to get out of the void. She's incredibly powerful. Let me make sure that's clear. She knows how to get out of the void. She wants to kill them. They escape being murdered by her. Now, slight more review than explain. I thought she was unbearable to watch. She was so unintimidating, so smithy. So I just couldn't stand her.
Yeah.
I hated her, and not in a good way, not in a Joffrey way. In a like, you're just butchering this so badly for me.
Yeah, she was a bit miscast and just an interesting choice because what is okay? So the void itself is a metaphor again, which a lot of bloody metaphors going on here. But a lot of the people who've been chucked into the void were formerly famous characters from the Fox universe. So you have, you happy for me to rattle off some references here, some cameos. So we had Johnny Storms from the Fantastic Four, played by Chris Evans. We had Toad and Sabretooth from the original X-Men, which is pretty wild to see. We also had Pyro, who's from the original X-Men as well. So they got some love. They came in, and then obviously we go out to the actual Cassandra Nova den where she's ridden and she's hid.
The base.
Yeah, the base. That's exactly what I was trying to say. I said den. So that's where our protagonists are ended up sent out to. And again, we've got a selection of things. You know, people like Juggernaut there, not played by Vinnie Jones, unfortunately. And really, at this point, the whole idea of the Void is that, okay, all of the Fox characters that we are no longer, or they're no longer able to use, are in this Void. That's the idea. And we'll have some more later, don't you worry. But Cassandra Nova was born in the Void, or she was similar to one of the other characters who'll turn up later, where clearly they are referencing the fact that this is a comic book character who has not been used, or they chose not to use. And so I can understand that, because they've got to get a really overpowered character to do this, but yeah, she just didn't do it. She just didn't do it for me at all.
Like every threat within this thing, she just kind of felt convenient, and also and just also in this particular case, a terrible character and a terrible performance. I'm sorry, I know people don't really like it but I just fucking hate her.
She was bad.
Okay, so Deadpool and Wolverine go looking for a rebellion. There's a rebellion within the Void against Cassandra. They find them. They happen to be a bunch of fan service cameos. Fred's just mentioned how that works. There's 5 of them. They basically, through a little bit of character background exposition, a little bit of sort of just nattering and showing Hugh Jackman drinking from a bottle again, they then decide to go and launch an attack on Cassandra's base with a very specific plan about how they're going to make her vulnerable, and then basically make her let them out, I guess.
Yeah.
So they succeed. They attack the base. They get her vulnerable, and then a bloke from the TVA turns up. Now the TVA, the Time Variance Authority, who we met earlier, have some sort of deal with Cassandra Nova, where they kind of leave her to her own devices in the Void, like a big sand pit for her. She's happy because she gets to just use her massive powers as freely and willingly as she wants, and they leave each other alone. Now, this guy from the TVA turns up while she is vulnerable, shoots her multiple times in the stomach or chest or wherever. And Deadpool and Wolverine are left in this position where they could save her life, but in doing so, they risk her just basically tearing them to shreds and killing her. They make the decision to take this vulnerability off of her. She heals herself, decides not to kill them, but to let them out of the Void. And just like every other stake rising moment, a cloud comes to attack them approximately at the right time, just so that their jump through the portal feels a little more earned, I guess. I didn't like this plot. So they escape completely unscathed. And we move on to our third act. Anything about the Void?
Slight correction. The person who shoots her is not from the TVA, but is in fact Pyro, so one of the old X-Men. And he was just working with the TVA. Like he is a character. So he's
kind of with the TVA.
Yeah, they I think reached out to him so that he could kill her, but she was working with them.
Okay.
And then just Void characters that Jamie mentioned. So you had Blade came back, Wesley Snipes, that's pretty massive. You had Jennifer Garner came back as bloody hell Elektra, and you also had Channing Tatum playing Gambit. He didn't play Gambit when it was actually cast before, but he was someone who was cast as Gambit, and they were going to make films about him. They were going to bring him out. It's just never materialized. And so he keeps referencing the fact that I feel like I was born here.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
You're my
bit of fun.
accent correspondent.
Yeah, with that accent, I guess he gets away with it because it's so purposefully bad, maybe?
I don't know.
I think he's trying to go with like a French.
Well, the character's name looks French, so I kind of figured by the end maybe that was what he was trying to do.
He definitely hit some Jamaican in there. Like, and I'm not just saying that as like an arbitrary accent I picked out, like 100%. He did some patois in there.
It was ridiculous. And Deadpool did what Deadpool does throughout the whole movie, which they just think they get away with it because they acknowledge
Deadpool
it.
references
They just go like, "Oh, you're ruining some exposition here because you're really hard to understand," and then suddenly that's supposed to be okay.
They make that joke 4 times.
Oh, so anyway, sorry, no, I'm not going to linger. So we move on to the third act, right? We've escaped from the void. I think we still have a plan to save the universe or somehow, but it doesn't matter because Cassandra, because she's been betrayed, basically decides that her plan is to use this universe destroying machine to destroy every single one of the infinite universes 15 minutes at a time, and then the void will be all that's left. That's her plan. That's what she's thinking. What the fuck? What is that?
What are we doing here?
What is that? What a terrible, what a massive, brutal pivot that makes no sense at all, that completely derails anything that might be relevant from the first 2 acts into the final act. And now that's all that matters. And it's like, that's come from 5 minutes ago. But don't worry, because just to make sure, if you weren't confused before, you will be when 100 Deadpools turn up for literally no fucking reason.
Yeah, they reference that there's loads of Deadpools in the void. But I don't know why. I don't know why there are loads of Deadpools
why are they turning up and why are they fighting him?
And they're
why,
all on Cassandra's
why are we
team.
doing this?
And then like, oh, we get the set piece where we get to fight all the Deadpools and Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman are going to go. And you know what? It is cool that they did comic book accurate Hugh Jackman's Wolverine's costume. That was cool.
I like that.
I like that. But then the fight itself was very much like, here we go.
It was,
Same
once
as the
again,
others.
completely pointless, right? It just made no sense, okay? And, well, that's it. It was pointless. There's a bunch of other stuff, but that's it. Don't do it.
What was your favourite fight in this?
Probably the first time I saw Wolverine and Deadpool fight, because it was very clearly set up and it was kind of fun to see, and then I got tired after that.
Yeah, I struggled with that one because he literally said, "You're going to really enjoy this fight."
Yeah,
and I was like, "Fuck you, no, I'm not."
Yeah, I know.
But I quite like the car fight.
I think I prefer the car fight. Here's the thing with the fighting, right? Okay. It clearly doesn't work stabbing and punching each other. So why are they not trying anything else, like a bit of Brazilian jiu-jitsu or, like some way of pinning them down or imprisoning them, or like, why are we still shooting and punching here? It's not working.
Yeah, it was so like tired. Like we did it the first time, then we were like, all right, we're doing it again, basically just because we want a bit of a biff. And the way we'll show this was intense is that we'll show it went on for a full day. With a sun going down and coming back up, transition, and then we'll do it with the Deadpools, and they've all got regenerative capabilities and whatever.
I think that really that specific this is relevant to a much broader problem with these movies, which is that nobody can die. You just cannot die.
That
and
is
this
so
movie is
true. That's such an issue. Like such an issue with just these. But it's been the issue with the comics as well. Like,
they killed Logan in this like heartbreaking movie that just tore people to shreds. It was so painful for everyone.
It's so important they don't bring him back after that. Like it's so important. Otherwise, it completely devalues it. It's the same. You don't see how Robert Downey Jr. is coming back.
Yes,
but as a different character, which okay, but like.
Fine.
Yeah, at this point, it was special because it was finite,
Yes, I 100% agree. So not only can they infinitely regenerate and not die, but when you eventually figure out how to make them die, you just go into one of the infinite universes that Cassandra Nova is attempting to systematically work through one at a time, which I don't think she realizes quite how long that's going to take.
And then we'll get onto it. I know you're going to get onto it, but then like you may as well have just like vomited on the page for the rest of what's going to happen. It's literally a case of we're going to hold hands and there's going to be antimatter and then we're going to have a tug of war.
That's pretty much exactly what I've written.
I mean, you can explain it a bit more detailed if you want, but genuinely, like, we're in this setup and then it's just the biggest arbitrary ending. Let's have some glowing lights and let's have Wolverine and Deadpool hold hands,
work together,
and use their... Oh, and if one of you does this because it's antimatter... Like, I'll explain because I'll just go off on a tangent with how much I'm disliking this. But Casanova finds the Doomsday device, starts you plugging into it with her telekinetic powers in order to break the whole multiverse. And then the only way to stop it is if someone goes in and kind of breaks a circuit, makes a circuit to break the circuit and takes the matter and the antimatter. But even for someone with healing powers, this would completely tear them asunder. So instead, they both do it at the same time because Deadpool can't reach, and then they hold hands, and then obviously it's fine because if you've got both of them together, they can't die because of the power of friendship. And then that's the end. And you're literally like, I know exactly what's going to happen here. Like, do we need to do it? Do we need to?
Yeah.
Do I need to watch this?
Yeah. I know how this is going to end.
Yeah, I know how it's going to start. I know what the middle is going to be.
There is one thing that they haven't concluded yet, which is obviously Wolverine's main driving thing is how hurt he is about the universe that he's left behind.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the main things that drives him is, I might be able to undo what I did.
Which Deadpool lied about.
Which, fine, I guess. It's not the end of the world. So they get to the end. The TVA turns up, and Deadpool says, "Okay, can we give Wolverine his universe back that he's wanted so badly?" And they basically just go, "No." And then Wolverine just goes, "Okay,
yeah, let's get a beer.
I could eat." Is actually what he says.
Also, I didn't. And
so he just stops caring about like one of the few problems that they actually spent some time setting up. How does it conclude? He just kind of forgets about it.
Yeah,
he just doesn't care
because he saved this universe. And also, what I wanted to say is, I was not happy. That's it.
Oh no, we've done another Furiosa.
I was not happy with his sob story, his backstory. Like, the fact that I know they didn't flashback it, which I kind of like. I thought we were going to get a flashback, which we didn't get. We just got him talking about it. But maybe I misunderstood here. But
no, you didn't.
By all accounts, he said, they were just they were having a jolly frolic in the sun, all of these superhumans, and then some humans came. And he literally says it like that, like, the humans came and then murdered them all.
And I wasn't there.
I wasn't about, so it's my fault. And now everyone in this universe hates me because the X-Men are dead because they wanted them dead because they're human. And also, how the fuck did the humans kill the fucking X-Men?
Like a group of X-Men in their fortress home
the reason
together.
It wasn't explained is because it's impossible to do. But obviously the humans, and he put so much emphasis on the word humans, like they're like the big bad because we really need to reflect on our own inadequacies. We are humans. He may as well have had Deadpool wink to the camera and go humans.
Oh my god.
But like, the whole point of all these universes is that you need to save the humans because the humans are fucking useless.
The vulnerable, weak that you want to protect and look after from these evil forces, and
at least make up some otherworldly thing that came down. And also, by the way, even if he was there, if fucking Charles Xavier isn't stopping these guys, Wolverine's doing fucking
Mr. Fingernails ain't doing shit.
Wolverine is doing jack shit, boy. You can fucking do one, mate.
We are 49 minutes in. We still got critical score and your segment to do.
Okay.
So let's just fucking go through this plot. I actually think we are now finally at a point where I could give the plot was probably, for me, the worst plot I've ever seen in my entire life. It was insulting. You know when you once said, how can you give Furiosa such a low thing? It has to be almost insulting. Not only am I insulted, I'm quite seriously insulted by how lazy and confused this writing was.
1.
I think this is our first 1 out of 10.
Fuck you.
Let's
Deadpool
go.
Wolverine.
Okay, cool. Character.
Some good characters.
Deadpool, Wolverine, Cassandra, and then about
so many characters.
and then like a trillion cameos.
You know what? I liked the cameos. Like,
Okay.
not just because they were, how am I going to word this? You know, most multiverse things will have a load of cameos and you're like, okay, it's there for the sake of it. But I actually did quite like the fact that all the 21st Century Fox characters are back. So it spoke to me.
Yep.
Still, Wesley fucking Snipes turned up. That's pretty mad.
He's a cool bloke.
Some great characters. I would say an 8.
I really hated Mr. Paradox and Cassandra, who were quite important to this particular film.
Yeah,
Like, I hated
that's
them.
why I'm only... I liked a lot of the other characters, though.
But they weren't like really important.
Yeah, but Wolverine and Deadpool are great characters.
Yes. So you got great characters, and then you've got atrocious. What would you give Cassandra Nova and Mr. Paradox, who are basically the two main other characters in this film?
Yeah, okay, all right. 6 is mix, perfect.
Okay, sure. Okay, cool. I thought we were going to go 7 there, but I'll take 6.
No, because it's mix.
Dialogue.
I mean, it's Deadpool. It's funny.
There were times where I laughed. I did laugh a couple times.
Yeah, I thought there were some good jokes, and it is good. Like the Ryan Reynolds is fucking great at the Deadpool shtick. It's just tiring. So
Yes.
he's just like fucking out another one. But I still think dialogue is
Pretty good.
decent. Yeah,
7?
Like 7. Yeah, go on.
Okay, so performance. I want to make a quick comment that I haven't made yet. There was before the car fight, Hugh Jackman, Wolverine, went in on Deadpool. I fucking loved that.
I thought he was really phenomenal.
I was like in awe. I was scared to be on the receiving end of that. It was so cool watching it.
I agree. You know, I actually thought that as well. Like for a comic book movie performance, that was a real step above.
Unbelievable. And then Ryan Reynolds nails Deadpool.
Yeah, it's just if
You
you're
can't
tired
fault
of
his
it as a
performance.
thing, it's not because of Ryan Reynolds is
Perfect for
That
it.
is like the most perfectly cast
Yeah.
comic book character. I think is up there in history with Hugh Jackman. He's next to him. So yeah, brilliant. Cassandra Nova, not good. Mr. Paradox. I mean,
Not
shit
good.
character, but yeah, also shit.
I would say at least 7 because of how the thing is. I think that we need I know we've already acknowledged it, but we need to make sure we are very clear. Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool could not be more perfect for that role.
Yeah.
Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, maybe not quite as but he's like he's still 9-10 out of 10 for Wolverine. Like he, apart from his height, obviously.
Yeah. Well, I think also you got to add in that this is the first time Hugh Jackman has been. Well, it's not the first actually. He did it for Logan, but this was an R-rated version of Wolverine, which was, off the deep end R-rated.
Okay.
Compared to Logan, which was just he got to say a few fucks.
Right.
So that's very different to what he used to do, like back in the day. So I still say just a 7 though.
7.
It's not,
okay.
It's
Cool.
not great, is it?
Visuals.
I
I like the way Deadpool looked. I liked the Wolverine suit.
love the Wolverine suit.
The Wolverine suit was good. The fucking Hugh Jackman.
Huge jacked man.
Huge
was
jacked man.
Phenomenally
10
ripped.
out of 10.
Phenomenally
Minimum.
ripped. Some great trend work going on.
The fighting
Yeah, fighting was
pretty
all right.
interesting to watch.
The
The editing of the fighting, less so.
much. Costumes all good.
Pretty good across the board visually. I think that is there anything that draws away from it?
Well, apart from all of the bloody, energy beam lines that are in all of these comic book films, like it's taking from a very well established formula.
I don't think they negate. I don't think.
No.
I think they are just mad.
No, but what I'm saying is you're not breaking much new ground apart from in the costume department where you're doing a lot.
Costume, choreography of fights.
Yeah, okay, all right.
And execution of the choreography, like the actual movement of the actors.
7.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Sound, 7.
Yeah, but it doesn't. Can we go 6? Because it actually annoys me
Yeah, I agree.
the way they used it, even though the songs were good.
I cannot stress this enough. This is a platform that I'm so glad I get to give this fucking opinion on. I cannot wait for them to stop wheeling out 80s songs for movies. It's so derivative that it pisses me off.
Yeah.
Like when Saltburn did it, I was like, we're still doing this? Like we're still trying this. The thing is, like Deadpool, it works. Like as annoying as it is, like people like it. It does well in the charts shortly afterwards. Madonna's going to be in the charts for the next few weeks, almost certainly. Like, but it annoys me. I wish they'd stop doing it.
Just give it a different decade.
Yeah,
That'll
yeah,
be
you
just a
literally,
bit
yeah,
better,
yeah.
you know?
Just fucking whap a 60s in there or
60s
something.
would be great.
90s.
I'd love a bit of the 60s. Love it.
Imagine if bloody Blue came on or something.
Blue came on, that would be quality. It'd be a 2030s, maybe.
Oh,
Bit of future.
bit of future. Beep, boop. Okay, moving on from our not very funny joke. Impact. So, box office,
Done very
Impact,
well,
10 out of 10. Will it impact cinema or Marvel or comic book movies or superhero movies or R-rated movies forever? What's the answer?
I think given the convergence, the proof will be in the critical pudding over time. Whether people find it to be too much of a whether people think it's a bit of a slap in the face. I mean, general consensus seems to be no.
Yes.
So I don't think it's 10 out of 10 impact for. Okay, so it's the highest grossing R-rated film of all time. That's pretty big, isn't it? I reckon we go. It's a 8 or 9 for me.
I think if it breaks a bill, it needs to be 9. Like $1 billion.
Well, how many films do a billion?
55.
But per year. It happens a lot more frequently now.
That is a very good question.
It's not even like it's not even the highest grossing film of this year. Inside Out 2 is.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, good for them. I think it's going to take me too long to Google this, so let's just go with 8.
Yeah, hit an 8. 8's great.
Okay, so before we go into our final segment, the Mate Night podcast has now rated Deadpool and Wolverine out of 10 in 9 different categories. We have taken the average to determine once and for all how good was Deadpool and Wolverine. So without further ado, we have rated it the following: 6.4 out of 10 for Fred's enjoyment, so purely subjective, 6.6 for my enjoyment, a 1 out of 10, our first ever 1 out of 10, and that comes under the plot rating because it was insultingly bad. Character 6, dialogue 7, performance 7, visuals 7, sound 6, impact 8, giving it an average score of 6.11 out of 10, making it the 32nd greatest film of all time until further notice. It also puts it 5 from the bottom of all the films we've done.
Not doing that great, and could have been lower based on our questioning of the ethics of this. Plot was a slap in the face to everything that is good about writing, and the only thing is that we take away is, it was fairly enjoyable.
We've got one more segment for the long form listeners.
Oh yeah,
Freddie's special segment, which is going to be less than 4 minutes long.
Okay. See what I can do.
We're at 59:18, so you've got if we're aiming for 50 minutes, you're gonna have to be quick.
Okay.
Nah, you take your time, my friend. You take your time.
Let me see what title I want to give this one. Okay. How Deadpool could have really saved the MCU. We come up with one change for Mate Night when we want to. Sometimes we don't. This time
We've got bored of that.
there were so many. This was a difficult one because there were so many instances where you could have changed something and made it a more coherent and better film. If you like this format, please feel free to like and subscribe. Ryan Reynolds, I hope you don't see this because I do like you, but bloody hell, man, this one was tough. All right. So, in this alternate version, the Time Variance Authority summons Deadpool, but they withhold the crucial detail that his universe is destined to die.
Okay, yeah.
This is a bizarre choice, I felt, in the film. Deadpool being a bit of a renegade fella.
Loose cannon.
Yeah, don't really know what he's about to do.
Quite happy to kill.
We've seen he has, killed on several occasions in a variety of 50 interesting and disturbing ways.
Very innocent TVA members who just turned up to do their job.
Why would you tell him that his universe is about to be pruned when it seems to be unnecessary?
I guess because they were going to prune it, and they wanted to give him the opportunity to leave before they pruned it.
Yeah, but I think maybe it even comes down to him asking too many questions and they just blurted it out. Am I remembering that correctly?
Can't remember.
Whatever happens, surely this should be state secret. Top notch. Don't tell this madman who can't die that we're about to explode his universe.
Yeah,
so
okay.
Just for clarity, in case anyone doesn't know, so the TVA kidnaps Deadpool. Time Variance Authority is basically taken to this weird time studio where we look at all the timelines, and it's a big old allegory, metaphor, whatever the fancy word that you remember that I don't, for how Marvel Studios is going to absorb the 21st Century Fox characters of Marvel, and they're going to can off the universe. Mm-hmm. So they're doing this because the key, what do they call it? The key person in the universe, Logan.
Anchor being.
The anchor being is dead. And so Deadpool is needed for the MCU. Another thing that was a bit unexplored, it was more of a joke that they said something to do with him dying for Thor's benefit. Whatever. So, my change, they don't bloody tell him, because basically the whole plot, he goes wild because they tell him his timeline's about to be snuffed.
Who could have seen that coming?
Yep, and then he goes mad, and we have that whole red herring that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how he saves the MCU. Well, then he goes on this tirade being Marvel Jesus, which is so tongue-in-cheek around, oh, Marvel's having a bit of a shit time at the moment. Let's bring in Deadpool, the merc with the mouth, to just tell everyone why he's going to save the day. Blah, blah, blah. Ryan Reynolds, I'm fucking Ryan Reynolds. Right, okay, so impact on the storyline. Deadpool's ignorance. So, Deadpool's actions. Without the knowledge that his universe is at risk, Deadpool wouldn't go on a rampage to save it. His usual antics would be in full swing, but the sense of urgency and desperation would be missing. Instead, his focus would be on whatever they sent him out to. So that would be this what was it, the sacred timeline. They'd send him out there. These notes are rubbish. So they'd send him out to the sacred timeline. What do you reckon would happen there? Can we think of anything interesting that might have... What was he doing with Thor? Was that to do with the Avengers?
Ooh, what we got? We got Thanos is dead, right? So he's not going to be...
So does he hop to the timeline which no one cares about, which is current day, where no one actually knows what's going on? Or maybe we just hop him back to a more interesting point, a bit in the Infinity Saga, where we were all still invested. How could we bring Deadpool into the MCU so that it was interesting?
How could we bring Deadpool back to the MCU?
I'm just having a look at my notes that I made about an hour ago.
I'll set you up to go if you've got a thought, because I'm stuck.
Yeah, go on.
I don't know, Freddie. What do you think, mate? I'm not sure.
My answer is, what do you think, audience?
Thanks for tuning in.
We're a bunch of idiots.
We're tired.
So what we could do is we could have him involved in the Snap event. Like, we could actually just get him into the Infinity Saga rather than doing all of the stuff that no one cares about anymore. Let's actually have him where,
he could be in place of Hawkeye. And then you actually have a
you have an interesting character
there.
An archer.
Instead of Hawkeye, who is a regular man.
So we could have Deadpool merc with the mouthing all over the place, getting involved in the Thanos fight. He could die in Thor's arms. Maybe it's to do with, when Thor comes back and he's in the Infinity War, the first one, where he comes back and he tries to kill Thanos, but he doesn't strike him through the head. Instead, Thanos manages to snap everyone. Now, maybe instead there, before he snaps, Deadpool comes in, saves the day, takes off enough of the gauntlet, or maybe one of the stones somehow, so that the snap doesn't work, but he's still able to obliterate Deadpool into smithereens. Thor swings his hammer, slices his head off, and then Deadpool dies in his arms, but he's chatting away, blabbering away the whole time.
And then Endgame never happens.
Endgame never happens.
Marvel lose out on several $1 billion. Well done, Fred. You're not,
maybe
you're not running our business.
All right. So let's talk about Paradox's plan then, shall we? Paradox. You know what? Who knows? Maybe it happened. Maybe Thanos was Thanos a bit rubbish? Yeah. Fuck Thanos.
Thanos was just yeah.
With Deadpool ignorant of the true plan, Paradox's attempt to destroy Deadpool's timeline might initially seem to go off without a hitch. However, Deadpool is still in the inherent unpredictability mode and can cause unforeseen complications. For example, in trying to assist the sacred timeline, Deadpool might inadvertently tamper with the very machine Cassandra uses to enact Paradox's plan. So, here's my thoughts, and this is what the crux of the matter. We can forget Thor, whatever. I don't like where the MCU has gone. Mm-hmm. It seems to be they had an amazing ending. Infinity War, Endgame. Maybe we don't lean on the Thor dying in his arms. Let's just keep that as is. But what we could do is we could use Deadpool and we could use the Doomsday device. We could use his inherent machinations and his atypical nature to work out a way where Deadpool gets in a situation where he finds out about Paradox's plan.
And then we're kind of back on track again.
Yeah, but this time, rather than us shoehorning Wolverine in, why don't we use this opportunity to use the Doomsday device to reverse the timelines so that the one that isn't put to bed, the Fox one, it's actually the Marvel one.
Oh my God, let's go.
Kill it. It's dead, mate. Kill it, dead.
Just let the poor thing rest.
Then we could have, he actually is Jesus. He is Marvel Jesus. Ooh. Because everyone wants Marvel. Marvel needs to give up. It needs to give up the ghost at this point. Like, come on. You had the best
Start a whole new thing.
You're ruining your own legacy. And who else to capitalize on that than the most annoying character in comic books?
Yes.
The only one who breaks the fourth wall, you know, certainly routinely in the universes. I know She-Hulk does it as well, but let's be honest, the only one who we really care about is Deadpool. Yes. She-Hulk, another property of Marvel, which was rubbish by all accounts.
Yes.
So
yes, I'm aware of that.
Why don't we use this as an opportunity to do what Paradox is trying, but actually put it right? We need to put down the dying dog that is the Marvel Universe. We need Deadpool to come in, find out about the plan. Maybe he overhears them talking about it. Fuck it, it's bad writing all the way. Let's go, baby. And then he gets hold of the Doomsday device. He can kill Paradox. Paradox what? And then he's able to work his magic to actually go down and create a circuit. But this time, it butchers the sacred timeline, reverses his. Fuck it, Deadpool dies as well.
Yes.
We don't have to watch another one of these films.
Yes. Yes. And also kill the wife and kids so that he's father to a murdered son.
And also, whatever happens, Maximus's family dies as well. Just a little spoiler for you. Maximus's family always dies in every timeline.
No matter how many timelines.
Maximus's family dies in a harrowing way. So, look, I didn't like this film. And you know what? I've decided I'm struggling with Marvel these days as well.
Big time, yeah.
Maybe, and genuinely what it could have been used as, it would have been very ballsy, is to just say, look, we've kind of fucked up with this Phase 4 stuff. Post-Endgame, we need a reset. So let's have Deadpool come in. We're going to do no more. We promise no more multiverses.
Yes.
Multiverses are done. Apart from this one, we will throw all the references to multiverses, but we will actually give it some weight because we will use him to finally terminate
the sacred timeline.
And it means it's still, you know, the event still happened, But now we're done, and we can move on to new things. We can have new characters.
Yeah.
If Deadpool's dead as well, then you can have some underutilized and underexplored characters come up. You can do what they do in comic books, so every generation or two they just set a reset, because
also,
otherwise
there's loads of ones like they haven't used that have just got untapped potential, like Channing Tatum's Jamaican Frenchman.
Yeah, Gambit would be the only one who survives. Hear me now. Hear me now, you rascal. It's a French accent I'm doing.
A Channing Tatum.
I'm doing a bad French accent, sorry.
Yeah. I really like that. I think that they tried to touch on "we promise we're done" sort of thing, but given how many times they have proved to us that they simply cannot let things die, it's very hard to believe them. So if Deadpool and Wolverine, there was some finality to their actions, which even Marvel couldn't try and backtrack on, that would feel very refreshing.
What an opportunity it'd be for them to actually start again, to have all the fun they had originally, all of that drive and ambition that it took to make the magical Infinity Saga. And now they are literally just beating the horse. Like, every single thing that comes out references the fact that there was this catastrophic world-ending event. Now they can just say, look, that's done. We completed it, mate. Let's have another crack at this.
If you made it this far, thank you so much for tuning in. If we happen to maybe have misunderstood something about the multiverse, please let us know in the comments below. If you've enjoyed it, like and subscribe. Thanks so much for listening, guys.
Thank you.
And to our long-form listeners who are still in, you absolute legends.
Oh, mate. Which one of you's managed to do that?
Which one of you's made it this far?
You legends.
I almost haven't made it this far.
I don't know what we're talking about.
I don't, neither do I. I'll be listening back over that.
It's a shit film.
I'll be hearing it for the first time. I cannot wait for the Furiosa grade comments. People are going to hate us, but we were a little bit better at articulating.
Tried harder.
And do you know what? It was more justified. Yeah, the Marvel fans are going to hate us for it, and the Deadpool fans are going to hate us for it, but I can live with that.
Furiosa didn't pretend to be something it was not. Yeah. Or it's not like this didn't do that as well. It just was something that it was and told you that it was that, and then made it seem that that was all right because it told you. And it's not all right.
It's definitely not. You can't just keep doing that.
Stop doing it. Stop it.
Okay, well, thank you so much for listening. Genuinely, really, we love and appreciate you all. We will have more and more content coming out on all your favourite platforms. Thanks again. See you on the next one.
Cheers, Lavender.